Thank you. Okay. Yeah, Chodesh Tov, everyone. Today we're going to start Tzadik Vav. That's 96b. And we did the Mishnah yesterday. We'll start from Reb Meir to the Reb Meir Eimer. Let's see. 5, 10, about 12 lines from the bottom. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. And in this course of our learning, we should have the Beis Hamikdash. And also we're learning in the memory of the Hava Golda, Baruch Binyamin, and everyone that needs Refuah Shlema should have Refuah Shlema, my father as well. Okay. So it starts like this. In the Mishnah, we said that if someone steals a animal and it ages, or he steals a slave and it ages, so he has to pay what it was he has to pay the value of it as it was when he stole it, which means that basically he acquires the item, but he pays, good morning, he pays for what he took. Okay, that's called Kshas Gzela, because the change that was made, the aging of it makes him acquire it, and then he has to pay what its original value. However, Reb Meir came along and said, but it says, Reb Meir Eimer ba'avad ma'imel reish lach lefenecha. When it comes to a slave, because a slave is compared to realty, and realty is not really acquired by a thief, because he's just considered a squatter. He doesn't really acquire it. He doesn't really take it under his possession. He's just trying to take over it, but it's still under the name of the original owner. So the same thing applies to a slave, that is still under the name of the original owner, and therefore he doesn't acquire it, and he can just give it back. Just give it back as is. Here it is before you. Hare, behold, Shalacha, what's yours? Lefanecha is right here. This is what's yours. Take it. Okay. Amar Rav Chanina bar Avdimi Amar Rav. Rav Chanina bar Avdimi, he says in the name of Rav, so Rav is the first generation Amira. He says, Halacha ki Reb Meir. Halacha is like Reb Meir. Which means that there's a comparison between a slave and property. That's what it means, Halacha ki Reb Meir. Gemara says, Rav Shavik Rabbanan Vavid ki Reb Meir. The Gemara is a little surprised. Gemara says, 1 second, but Reb Meir doesn't get the halacha. The sages always get the halacha. Whenever there's a machlekes with Reb Meir, the sages, and Reb Meir and the sages win. Amri, so they said like this. The reason why Rav is saying the halacha is like Reb Meir is because he's really saying the halacha is like the Chachamim. It's just taught the opposite in the Brisa. In the Brisa, it says that the Chachamim say that there's a comparison between the slave and the realty, slave and property, and so therefore when he says the halacha is like Reb Meir, it really just means the halacha is like that there's a comparison between the slave and property, and which means that a slave is never acquired by the thief. You can always hand it back, but that's really the opinion of the Chachamim in the Brisa. So on the Mishnah, he said the halacha is like Reb Meir because it says it exactly the opposite in the Brisa. Gemara says V'Rav Shabik Masnisa Vavid Kebraisa. So why is Rav ignoring our Mishnah? Why is he picking a Brisa over the Mishnah? If he wants to pass like the Chachamim, so in the Chachamim and the Mishnah say exactly the opposite. The Gemara says Rav Masnisa Nami Chetanya. Rav also changed around the order of our Mishnah, who said what. So basically, what Rav is saying is that the halacha is that slaves are just like property, and they're never acquired. And he says the halacha is like Reb Meir, but it doesn't really mean the halacha is like Reb Meir. It really means the halacha is like the Chachamim because he switched it around. No.
It's like confusing enough.
Yeah, but take a look. It says, my time at the Rab Dapik Masnisim Kamma Daf. Why does Rab switch the Mishnah because it was switched in the Brisa? There's other Rabba. Nepech LeBrisa Mecham Masnisim. Rab should have switched it the other way. The Mishnah is stronger than the Brisa, so he should have switched it the other way. Amri, they said like this: Rav nami masnisin iptasnim. Rav.
The mission was composed of brises, which were, vetted, right?
You don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you mean vetted? What does that mean?
It means everyone keeps a consensus about like which brises were valid, which were not so valid.
Yeah, well, Rabchi and Rabbi Shia worked on that, on the brises. But what the Gemara says over here is that Rav Nam Masnisin Ibcha Asne, he actually learned the Mishnah the opposite. It's not that he switched it because of the brise. That's how we learned it. And there's another pshat. What we can say is like this: when would Rav never turn over a Mishnah because it says it in a brisa? That's only chada mikami chada. That's only if it's one for one. A Mishnah for a brisa, the Mishnah wins. He won't turn the Mishnah because of a brisa. However, chada mikami tarti apich. But if he has two brises, then he'll turn around the Mishnah because of the two brises. He'll readjust the Mishnah. The Tanya, what's the other brisa that goes like this? It says hamachlef para b'chamar, going into a totally different case. But we're doing this in order to get the to see what the Chachamim really hold about slaves, if slaves are considered like realty or not. Because if someone exchanges a cow for a donkey, now Violda, and then the cow gave birth. So what happened over here was that what's supposed to happen is two people are supposed to be there.
The donkey can't give.
Cow gave birth.
Cow, but
So two people, really two people should be there. And the owner of the donkey, the owner of the donkey is now going to take the cow, and the owner of the cow is now going to take the donkey, and they make a switch. But it turned out that that's not exactly what happened. The cow was back in the pen or wherever they keep it, and the donkey was here. So the owner of the donkey hands it over to the owner of the cow, and the owner of the cow pulls the donkey. Okay, now at that moment when he pulls the donkey, the cow that's back in his property switches over to the donkey owner. Okay, so then when they get back, they realize that the cow had given birth. Question is, did it give birth before the owner of the donkey, before the owner of the cow pulled it, or did it give birth after he pulled it? If it gave birth after, then he owns the offspring as well. Yeah, pulled the donkey. Owner of the cow pulls the donkey.
If the agreement was just for the cow, even like that acquisition would change it. Even if they agreed on just the cow, maybe the owner of the cow didn't know.
Either the cow as is, whatever's there. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. Morning. You want a Gemara? Over here, this. One second. That may be the wrong one. Check again. That's the wrong one. Take the Baba Kamma. It says on the bottom. Two lines, not one line. Yeah. Take those. Okay. So, okay, that's our first case. The same thing as if someone sells. Yeah.
No.
If someone is selling a maidservant, which means a slave, a female slave, and the way you sell a female slave is with a document. So he writes a document and he hands the document over to the other person. When he comes back and checks on the slave woman, he sees that she had given birth. Question is, did she give birth before the sale or did she give birth after the sale? If she gave birth after the sale, then he owns the offspring as well, the purchaser. So obviously this is going to end up in court. This one says, it gave birth in my possession. I know somehow I know. The other guy says, well, I don't know, so he's quiet. So the rule is Zachaba. The one that says that it's mine, he acquires it because the rule is Bari V'Shema Bari Adif. Whenever one person is definite The other person doesn't know. The one that's definite wins. What's the rule? This one says I don't know. This one says I don't know. So Yachlaiku. That's following the opinion of Sumchus, who's a student of Reb Meir, and Sumchus holds whenever we have money that's in doubt, we always just split it in half. That's easy. Just divide it. Let's say let's say they're actually what's it called? Butting heads. This one says it was in my possession, and this one says it was in my possession. They're really arguing over here. And no one is saying I don't know. Everyone says it's 100% mine. So Yeshava HaMeicher B'Shusi Yolda, the Meicher, the seller, says that he has to swear that it was in his possession. Okay, now this is an interesting point. The way the Gemara is viewing it is based on the Gemara and Bava Metzia.
This is who owns the offspring?
The original owner is going to have to make an oath. Why? Because the purchaser comes to the original owner and he says that you owe me two things. You owe me the cow and the offspring, or you owe me the maid servant and the offspring. And the guy says, I'm only giving you one. I'm only giving you the mother, not the offspring. So that's called a maida b'miktas. He's partial admittance. The rule is he has to make a shvuah. Now, the rule in the Torah is that whoever makes a shvuah exempts himself. According to the Torah law, all oaths only exempt the person from giving, not extract money. So I don't have the purchaser make the oath. I have the seller make the oath, and then he's exempt from giving it. So he has to make that oath, and then he's exempt. He only gives the mother, not the offspring. Nevet Kanani, yeah. Nevet Kanani, very good. So, Divrei Reb Meir, that's what Reb Meir says. Okay, now it turns out that the Gemara over there has a little bit of a problem with this. The Gemara says that there's a problem called Halach. Halach means that if someone says, you owe me $200, and the guy says, I really owe you 100, and here it is. He gives him the $100. So now they're only arguing about 100. Now at this point he's not denying partial and admitting partial because that admittance was already paid. There's machlekes in the Gemara. What's it done by halach? But if halach is not considered a maida b'miktas, if when he hands it over it's not considered a partial admittance because he already paid that part, now it's a full denial. So then why over here is there a partial admittance? He's giving the slave right away to it's halach. So the Gemara says we're talking about a case where the hand of the either of the slave or of the animal got cut off. So when he's asking for the mother, he's not getting the full mother either because he's missing a hand. That's how the Gemara figures out how it's possible to avoid the halach. Okay, anyway, whatever the case, that doesn't matter for us. That's not our problem.
When we discussed this, that the cow got pregnant or the shifra, when is this within the gestational age or is this after? In other words, are we saying, oh, he got it already pregnant but neither knew it, or it got pregnant after the woman after 9 months or the cow after?
So here we're talking about just the sale itself. The sale itself took place before the birth or after the birth. We don't have the. We don't have the. Good morning.
Good
morning. Good morning. I don't see Shalom.
10 months before the shifra got pregnant.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the sale took place 9 months after the shifra got pregnant, and it's the time of birth.
So that's what I'm saying, within the gestational period, not after, because then there's no shaila.
Right.
Well, maybe.
Does this line up with the Bava Metzia when they find the item and they're like fighting over it? They both claim that they found it.
3 pages later, then you have this Gemara over there. This is a continuation of that. So, Okay, so the Chachamim, this is the mayor's view. The sages say, the sages say that you don't swear on slaves or on property, which means that the sages are doing a comparison between property and slaves. Oh, that's what we were looking for. That it's not Reb Meir that holds that, it's the Chachamim. Now it explains why Rav wanted to say that the halach is that we compare slaves to property. He wasn't really passing like Reb Meir, he's passing like the Chachamim, because we have it over here in the Bryce, and now we have two Bryces that say that the Chachamim hold that slaves are compared to property. The Gemara says, "Hi halacha Reb Meir, halacha Rabbanan mi bayalei." If that's the case, that we don't even go like Reb Meir, it's really going like the Chachamim. Why did Rav say the halach is like Reb Meir? He really meant to say the halach is like the Chachamim. So hachi kamar. What it means to say, according to the way that you switched it backwards, and you said that Reb Meir holds what the Chachamim hold, the Chachamim hold what Reb Meir holds. So halacha Reb Meir, halacha like Reb Meir, but really the halacha is like the Chachamim, and he's just talking to the people that have it backwards. He says the halacha is like Reb Meir. Okay, whatever the case is, Rav holds that slaves are compared to property, which means that if someone steals a slave and the slave ages, he can give the slave right back because he never really acquired the slave, even when that change took place, because property is never acquired by a thief. So to a slave is never acquired by a thief. It's only a regular
real estate property.
Oh, yeah, real estate property. Realty is never acquired by the thief. The thief is just considered a squatter. Is not considered. He doesn't actually take ownership of the property, even if he digs or whatever.
In case of the property, there's various ways that you can take a position.
But not by a thief, right?
Yeah, like making the fence,
Right,
digging a
exactly.
hole. But by the slave, the only way is with the document.
What did we say in Kedushin? I think we said the same thing by the same ways. I think Kesef, Shtar, and Chazaka, right? The ways of, now how do you do Chazaka? I think I don't remember exactly, but in Kedushin we had a comparison over there that a slave is acquired in different ways. It's not just the document. Okay, now the Gemara asks, does Rav really say that slaves are like property? Rav Daniel bar Rav Katina Marav, but Rav Daniel bar Rav Katina said in the name of Rav, it's pater. It's a very interesting case. Someone grabs his friend's slave and he puts him to work. It's pater. Okay. Now you have to think about it like this. When it comes to theft, if someone steals an item, let's say he steals a lawnmower and he mows his lawn, he uses it, and then he gives it back. So if he gives it back, he doesn't have to pay for the usage of it. He gave it back, he stole it, he gave it back, that's the halacha. But if it wasn't theft, then he would have to pay for the benefit that he got.
But if someone wants to baste him between the time he returned it and used the lawnmower,
It could be different. Could be different. So here, if we say that that it's not considered theft, it's not considered that he acquires it. It's always in the property of the owner, the original owner. So if someone takes the slave and he uses the slave, he should really be paying for the benefit that he got from the slave. This is the benefit. Why is he pater? If you say that the slave is like property, am I pater? Why is he pater? But he gave it back. He gave it back. But he's really, if it's in the possession of the owner could have used it then, and you took it away from him. So you have to pay for the usage of it.
Like the property that they took over and then the rent.
Very good. It's exactly Hillel's telling me it's like the property where someone goes into someone's property and takes the property and he lives there. Very good. The Gemara answers, you'll see in a moment, the Gemara is going to discuss that. Talking over here that the owner wasn't using the slave, and therefore the owner is not losing anything. And the person that's grabbing the slave and using the slave, so he is he's not making the owner lose, he's just gaining. Just like Rav Abba sent to Mari Bar Mar, he said, ask Rav Huna the following question. If someone goes into his friend's courtyard, and he lives over there. And the friend didn't give him permission. It was one of these things. The guy lives in Toronto, and he comes over here in the winter. The guy moves in the summer. No one knows about it. He lives there. So does he have to pay the rent? No one lost. There was no loss. And he said back, he doesn't have to pay any rent. There was no loss to him. So same thing here. There was no loss to the owner of the slave, and he used the slave on the off hours. Gemara says, 1 second, there's a big difference between the slave and the property. Over there by the property, according to the opinion that says that it's good for a house to be settled. Why? Because when a little thing breaks, he twists the screws and he wipes down the dust, and he's someone that lives there keeps it fresh. So there's a benefit to having someone there. The pipes don't freeze. It's not a problem over here, but it's a problem up north. You leave the house, you come back, the pipes burst. So so that's the benefit to him. The Gemara we had earlier, it says that there's a demon that comes and lives in houses that are empty. So there's a benefit to having him there. So the reason why he doesn't have to pay rent is because the original owner is quite happy to have someone living there. That's fine. So nichale. But does the owner really want that his slave should be overworked? So it's a loss. Extra energy.
The house has wear and tear.
Yeah, the house has wear and tear. But apparently we're thinking that
Not having the demons, then there's more.
and keeping everything fixed. It turns into like a disrepair. What's the scientific thing when everything goes from order to chaos naturally? What's it called? Entropy. So thank you.
Right on time.
Excellent. Yeah.
I'm sure if you use one something you speak the one you don't use it.
Yeah, well, everything goes in a natural state. It goes from, did I say bracha on this? I didn't say bracha. Naturally, see, this was originally hot. This goes from hot to cold. It will never go from cold to hot because the heat is going to come up over here. Everything goes into Why?
So if you had a separate door,
No, he told me I didn't say.
you trust him?
Yeah.
I thought
Amri. So okay. So here we have a question over here. We have a question that over here the slave is getting used. It's a damage to the owner. He should have to pay for that. Gemara says, very interesting. Gemara says that the original owner is actually happy that he's using his slave because he doesn't want his slave to learn to be idle. Yeah. One of my friends went on shlichus to, I forget where it was, Ecuador or something, and he was there in the yeshiva. I don't know if it was Ecuador. It was one of those South American places. Anyway, they had a like these maids and stuff. Everyone, they come to like help. That you don't have that type of help in America. So he took a $10 bill. He gave it to the lady, and then the rabbi that was the head. So why did you do that? Now I'm gonna have to fire her. I paid her $10 a year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you gave her just for cleaning the room.
She's not coming back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in South Florida, the issue with the houses is not having the air conditioning on. Like it gets moldy.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, the Gemara gives us a little story. Apparently, people owed Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama money. Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama would take their slaves, and he would do work with them. They would have them do work. Now, apparently, he wasn't taking off from the bill that they had. He was just doing work with these slaves. So Amalei Rabba Bray, so Rabba Bar Yosef says, "My time Abed Marhachi, why are you doing this?" Amalei Damrav Nachman Avdanum Kresi Leishavi says, "There's no problem. A slave isn't even worth the work that he does isn't even worth the food that I give him. And as I feed him more than the work, than the benefit that I get. That being the case, just 1 second. Let me. That being the case, since I'm feeding him, so there's no. Oops. That being the case, so there's no loss.
No ribbis.
There's no ribbis. Rav Nachman probably said that about a type of slave. His name was Daru, that he would just dance at the what is Bekuvi, at the party house or something, taverns. So that's not really worth much, and they cost more to feed than the work that you get. Kule avdi meved avdi, but you want to say that all slaves are going to be like this, that they don't have that value. Amalei, so Rabbi Yosef responded, Anakar Rav Daniel really, he changed his mind. He says, I hold like a different rabbi. You're allowed to take someone's slave. Well, it doesn't say you're allowed. It says if you do take someone's slave, you don't have to pay for it. Alma, and the reason for that is he doesn't want his slave to be idle. I'm actually doing him a favor. Amalei, he says, but that's only when the person doesn't owe you money. But if the master, referring to his father, given the masik buzuzi, since they owe you money, it looks like you're taking interest. Because you're taking, besides for the loan that they have to repay, you're also using their slave. Let's say the fellow that moves into the person's apartment because the guy's out of town. He's a squatter. He goes in over there, and when the guy comes back, he kicks him out. He says, "You owe me." The guy says, "No, I'm not paying. You weren't here anyway. You didn't. You weren't renting it out. You had no loss." So that's allowed. He doesn't have to pay him, but he'll But if he owed him money originally and he goes and lives there, he has to pay him because it looks like interest. If the owner of the property had lent, if the owner of the property was a borrower, right? Then the person that's living there is not only taking his money back, but he's also taking the fact that he's living there. He's taking some extra income.
He doesn't discount the loan.
If he doesn't discount the loan, so over there we'd have to pay to discount the loan. So Amalei Hajibi says, "Okay, I retract. I'm not going to use the other people's slaves anymore."
A slave that is not worth the bread of the stomach.
Yeah.
That's pretty harsh.
Yeah. It's mine. You have a statement. I take if someone hijacks a boat. Is that the word for hijack? They hijack. Seizes. Say take someone's boat and he does take some trips with it. Then he comes back, he gives it back. So Amar Rav says Ratza Schara Naitel, Ratza Pachsa Naitel. The owner has two options.
You have the keys for it?
That's funny.
Usually leave it in.
Jonathan says he had the keys for it. He has two options. Either he can take what it would cost to rent that. The owner could say, "Okay, you used it, pay me the rental fee," or he can say that pay me for the wear and tear. Now, obviously, if the wear and tear, sometimes there's no wear and tear. It's just there was nothing, so he's going to end up getting no money. This is okay, so pay me for the rental. Sometimes there's a lot of wear and tear. He broke the thing, or whatever. So it's just pay me for the wear and tear. It depends. He has the choice of choosing what he wants. Shmuel says, he can't take the rental fee. He can only take the wear and tear. Amar Rav Papa says, they're actually not arguing. In general, when you have in the Gemara, it says Pligi, that they're not arguing. It's usually Rav Papa that says that.
There's no era of just taking something.
Yeah, there is a problem. It's stealing, but the only thing is the rule by stealing is that if you give it back, then everything that you used you don't end up paying for.
Right.
So he's stealing and returning, and in the interim he used it. He doesn't. He gets away with that. Is that how it is in America? You have to pay for the time that it was missing.
The judge might take it a little bit easier on you because you returned it, but they'll still charge you with the.
Someone steals a car, and they catch him. It says, "Okay, yeah, put it back. You can have it back."
He's going to jail.
He goes to jail. He goes to jail. But financially, what does he have to pay? Does he have to pay the person because the other guy had to rent the car? Yeah. He would have to pay no time in prison. But does he have to pay for the person any more?
No, I think they do.
But that's
they do put a time, but I don't know. if
that's
they're-
not.
Yeah, they do. It's called conversion. It's a civil lawsuit for you have to prove damages. Yeah, but I mean, you always have to prove damages in civil lawsuits.
So over here in the Torah, you don't have to. In the Torah, you
You
don't
have
have
to pay
to.
3 times American law, I think, under conversion.
Oh, really?
Triple. You pay triple.
If he crashed the guy's car.
Oh, that's something else. That's the damage. I'm talking about where he gives it back in perfect condition, but he just used it. The other guy had to walk or rent or whatever.
What if he washes it before he turns it?
Shines it up.
The owner has to pay for the wash, for the car wash.
The owner from who?
Yeah, the thief has to pay the thief for the car wash. Kamma Daf Papa, the Rav Papa says, "Lei pligi." It depends. When Shmuel said that you can't charge rent, that's because the boat wasn't up for renting. He wasn't renting it out. If it was renting it out, then he can actually charge the rent because the guy took it and he could have rented it. But if it wasn't renting it, it was just sitting on the behind his what's it called? In the dock behind his house. So it's private boat. So, okay, only wear and tear. Iba Yisema. If you want, we can also say Hava David Lagra. Both of them are up for rent. This is very interesting. It depends why he took it. What was his intention when taking it? If he was taking it to rent it, then he has to pay the rent. If he was taking it to steal it, then he doesn't have to pay the rent. It turns out it's like he has like this little benefit. Then he would only have to pay what it got worth less because he has to pay when you return the item, you do kshasa gzela as it was at the time of taking it. And now that it's worth a little less because there's wear and tear, so he has to make that up, the wear and tear, because he has to give it for as the value at the time that he took it.
For the boat, they could say the same thing as the house. That like using the boat will prevent it from
Could be. It could be. It doesn't say this though, but yeah.
If you let a car sit or a boat sit, like the batteries drain.
Right.
What happens if while he took it out, he took people on an excursion, charging $300 for it back, so he made a profit? It's like the shifter that was driving into the cow. Does he have to give them money back?
In Bab Metzia, we're going to have a statement that we don't like people making money off someone else's item. Yeah, we'll have that in Bab Metzia.
But here it said that if he rented it, he has to pay the owner the rent.
If he if it was rentable, if the owner would have been renting it.
No,
Go back.
That if he stole it to rent it, he has to give the owner the rental money.
Right.
So it's the same thing as the excursion.
No, here he was saying that he stole it to steal it, but while he had it stolen, he then gave someone a ride and charged them. Yeah. Okay. Gozal matbea v'nistak. We had 2 cases in the Mishnah regarding coins. One was he stole a coin and it cracked. He has to give him the original value of the coin. Nistak means it cracked. Another case was he stole a coin and it became invalid. Says that he can just return it. We have a totally different halacha between those 2 cases. The Gemara now says, Gozal matbea v'nistak, he stole a coin and it cracked. So he is going to have to replace that. He's going to have to be kshasa gzela, right? Amar Rav Huna. It's going to be a machlekes here. What does it mean it cracked? Rav Huna says nistak mamish. Cracked means literally it broke. He has to replace the what its value was originally. Nifsal, what does it mean it became invalid? Kasal malchus, the government made it invalid. The government said you can't use that coin anymore.
The old Israeli shekel.
I read in the biography of there's an article biography of Rav Dessler. It's a very good book. There's two art scroll biographies that I like. One is Reb Shamshon and Paul Hirsch, another one is Reb Dessler. Both are very worthwhile. No, Michtav Melio. Anyway, in there they say about, I forget if it was his father or someone else, but someone became very wealthy, and government switched, and the new government, all the money that he had was worthless. So, that's the government's take over. It was just they switched the whole thing. They say all this money, he became like a pauper just with that something in the government. So he saved those dollars. He wanted to see how you can't rely on money. It wasn't dollars; it was rubles of one of those things. Okay.
You should invest in it.
So Nifsal Pasalti Malchus
Was then expropriated by the new government. So he
Yeah,
lost
by
it.
eminent domain.
according to Rav Huna, if the government says that currency is not valid, then the person that stole it can still just give it back. You just give it back. That's what he took. That's what he gives back. Rav Yehuda says differently. Pasalta Malchus nami hanenistek. Rav Yehuda says no. If the government says that's invalid, then you can't give it back. That's considered like it's cracked. So what do you mean when it's invalid? This area, this country doesn't use it, but you can still use it in another country. So it didn't lose its entire value. So in such a case, you can give it back and tell the guy, no, it's not really usable right now, but you could go over there and figure out how to.
Confederate dollars, people have those.
Oh yeah,
They were valid, of course, right?
They are valid
As an antique item.
Oh, as an antique.
My parents have some dark book.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll see that in a minute. So Amar Rav Chizdel Rav Huna. Rav Chiz asked Rav Huna, Lididach, Amar Nifsal Salta Malchus. According to you, that you say that when something is invalid, that really means that the government made it invalid. And nevertheless, you can still return it. 1 second. Hare Peres, what about fruits? Verkiva, that they became rotten. Yayin vehichmitz, wine that went sour and it became vinegar. It's exactly like the money that's out of circulation. And over there it says by the fruits that became rotten and the wine that became invalid, you say that you give it back, that you have to pay the original price. And by the coin that became out of circulation, you say that you can just hand it back, according to Rav Huna. Amalei, so Rav Huna responds, he says you have to look at the essence, that the item itself. Over there, the fruits, the chemical makeup of the fruits is different now, and the wine it's different. It went sour. On the other hand, the money, if you look at the actual chemistry of it, it's exactly the same. There's no difference, so you can just hand it back. Amalei Rava, the Rav Yehuda. Rava says to Rav Yehuda, now on the side, Yeshaya Pick on the side has a problem with it saying Rava says to Rav Yehuda, because we have a Gemara in Kedushin that says that when Rav Yehuda passed away, Rava was born, which means Rava and Rav Yehuda never had a conversation. So you adjusted to Rabba. Rabba's the teacher of Rava. So Rabba, you have Rabba and your Gemara perfect. Rabba says to Rav Yehuda, Lididach Damnet, according to you, that you say that if the government made it out of circulation, that's considered like it's cracked, and therefore you have to pay the original value. You can't just hand it back. What about truma? If truma became tameh, someone has the food that's supposed to be given to the Kohen, if it becomes tameh, you really can't do anything with it. So the chipasalta malchus tameh. Now the rule is if someone steals truma, makes it tameh, and hands it back, it's acceptable, even though the original owner can't really do much with it. So uktani haramari shlach lefanecha. Nevertheless, you're allowed to say hand it back. But so the truma that's tameh and the coin that's out of circulation is really the same thing. Both of them are useless, and there's no like chemical difference between the amalei. He says hasamle minkar zeka minkar zeka. No, he says over there by the truma, when you look at it, you can't see that it's tameh. But over here, when you look at this coin, you can tell that this coin is out of circulation. I know what's going on with the coin. By the truma, just visually you can't see anything. Okay, Itzmar, you have a statement like this. Someone buys something on credit. Here we're talking about a loan, but we really mean he buys something on credit. He says, I'm going to pay you $1 or whatever.
You said you don't see it because it's not visible. But when we had that case with the woman with the moon that wasn't visible,
With the
the
mum.
but we said, other women might have seen it in the this, that. So even though it wasn't visible to the guy, you remember the case I'm talking about? He was going to marry her or something, but we said she had a non-visible mum. But her sisters, other people would know. So with the truma thing,
no, but that's different. That's a non-visible mum means that you don't see it because she's clothed. She's wearing her clothing.
Okay,
but over here,
but someone else knew about it.
Someone else knew about it.
So with the truma, it's the same thing. Someone else.
No, the visible. Visible, you can't see it. You can't put on glasses and see tuma.
You can't put on X-ray glasses and see with the clothes.
Yes, you can.
Oh, whoa! Family shear.
Yes, you can.
No,
It's not. It's invisible.
Invisible. They're both invisible. They're invisible to the person who's looking.
No. Okay. One's a reality. Yeah.
One is physical and the other is spiritual.
Right. Okay. So if someone someone buys something on credit, okay, what's going to happen is he's going to have to pay whatever amount of money they made up. So he makes up that he owes him $1, $10, whatever. The problem is that with the money, the currency that they made up, the coin that he made up he's going to pay became out of circulation. Rav Amar, Rav and Shmuel. Rav says, Rav says, okay, I know what they made up, but you have to readjust this because that coin doesn't work anymore. So he has to pay him the new coin. You can't pay him the Confederate dollars.
Canadian money. We don't accept Canadian
money.
Right.
It's going to be China if you when they go off the dollar.
Shmuel says, Shmuel says he can give him the money that's out of circulation. It says, go use it in that other country over there. They're still using this. Amar Rav Nachman says, Mistaber Milsa de Shmuel Disley Orchel Amezel Ameshan. Now, I'm not sure exactly how it's translated. I understood what Rav Nachman's saying is that if the person had a plan to travel to Meshan, then he can, is that how it's translated? Okay, that's fine. So if he had the plan to go to Meshan, then he can say, you're going to Meshan anyway, use it in Meshan. But if he wasn't planning on going to Meshan, he can't just give him that coin and say, go just make a special trip just for that coin to use it. Esvei Rav of Nachman. Rav asked Rav Nachman a question. It says, Ein mechal an Moshe and Yotzis. You can't use for Meiser Sheni. What happens is the second tithe, you have to bring the produce to Jerusalem. The only problem is that it gets very heavy. So the rule is that you're allowed to redeem it and bring coins instead. So, but you have to use coins that are going to be able to be used in Yerushalayim. Ketzat. I'm sorry. The temple. Well, coins that are acceptable in usage. That currency is acceptable. Ketzat Haylay Mais Kaisvies Yerushalmius. Let's say you had money that was from Ben Kuziba. That was Bar Kokhba had a revolt against his name was Ben Kuziba. So they minted coins, Bar Kokhba's coins. So they went out of circulation. Oishal Malachim Rishon, where he had coins from earlier kings, which were also out of circulation. Ein Mechalim, you can't use those coins. But let's say we have later coins that are also out of circulation. Mechalim, then you can use it. That's the Gemara is implying this. And now it says, so it sounds like even you're allowed to use coins, even though they're not acceptable here, because they're whatever the reason is, they're out of circulation here, but you can use them somewhere else. And we didn't say that you have to have a plan in your itinerary that's where you're headed. You could use it anyway. The reason why that would be acceptable to use coins that you can't use right now in Yerushalayim, but you can use them somewhere else, we're talking about because the government allows you to bring those coins from one place to another. Okay. Ella, if that's the case, when Shmuel said that you're not allowed to, Shmuel said two things. Shmuel said, if you have a plan then you can use those coins that are out of circulation. You have a plan to go there, according to Rav Nachman. And if you don't have a plan, then you can't use those coins. So 1 second. If you have a plan to travel, you can use those coins. But 1 second, the government doesn't allow you to bring it. Because they stop you by the border and they check if you have those other coins. You're in trouble. Say, how is he able to bring it if the government doesn't allow it? It says the government doesn't allow it, but they also don't check. Okay, Gemara knows everything over here. However, if they find it, so they're going to confiscate. But nevertheless, you're still able to get them through. Okay. Tashma. Let me finish this off because I don't want to go over this again. Is that clock fast?
5 minutes.
Okay. So Tashma, ein mechalan al moishel kan v'him bebubble.
That's the right time.
Your clock's on. But
So
It's Rosh Chodesh.
was you?
Okay.
Was your clock? Your clock.
ein mechalan moishel kan v'him bebubble. You're not allowed to use money of Yerushalayim when the person and the money is in Bavel, because it's not usable in Bavel when you're redeeming it. B'shel Bavel v'hen kan, you can't use money of Babylonian money, and the people and the money are in Jerusalem. Shel Bavel v'hen b'Bavel machalin. But if it's in Bavel, the Babylonian money and the people are in Bavel, that's okay. Okay, basically, it has to be acceptable where you are. That's what it seems. Tani miyas, what did we learn here? Ein mechala moishel kan v'hem b'Bavel. You can't use money of Yerushalayim when the people are in Bavel. Now, what do you do with Meiser Sheni? You take the money and you go to Yerushalayim. Afagav the Sefer Lamesik Lasim. Why not? According to Shmuel, if you have a plan to go there, which obviously he does because he has Meiser Sheni, he's got to go anyway. Why can't he use Yerushalmi money in Bavel and then he's going to go to Yerushalayim? Shmuel said that that's acceptable. So we're talking about where in Yerushalayim they don't let Babylonian money in. The Gemara says, if that's the case, that's the case, and why, if he's in Bavel and he's using Babylonian money, is he allowed to use it? They're not going to let it in. It says what use is that if he can't bring it? It says what he's able to do is he's able to buy an animal and bring the animal on the boat or maybe something. Okay, Vatanya, the Bragmar has a question. They made a decree that you're allowed to that in Yerushalayim you should use all currencies should be accepted so that people should be able to redeem. And here you're telling me that sometimes it's not accepted. Depends. Were the Jewish people in control or not? The Gemara just finishes here. What did it look like on the coin of Yerushalayim? David and Solomon on one side. Yerushalayim was on the other side. What was out the coin of Avraham Avinu? An older man and an older woman on one side, and a young boy and girl were on the other side, referring to Yitzchak and Rivka. Okay, let's leave it here. Good Chodesh, everyone.